Hello and welcome to CVG's Ultimate Xbox Preview event. I'm Dan Dawkins, former editor of Xbox World magazine and co-host of the League of Next Gentlemen. I'm joined today by Tim Clark.
Hello.
And Tim is a co-host of the League of Next Gentlemen and the group editor of games, senior group editor of games. And I'm also joined by Matthew Pellett, who worked on Xbox World for how long, Matt?
4.5 years.
Good times.
Very good times.
And currently editor of Games Master. Now, on today's show, we'll be previewing the big event, which goes live in just a few hours, and then we'll be linking you towards our follow-up event, where we'll all be talking about what we've seen just a few hours after the show. So please do subscribe by clicking on the link somewhere here on the page right now, and don't miss it. We'll have all the reaction straight away. Okay, on today's show, we're going to run through a couple of topics. One will be like a last-minute rumour roundup with all the hottest rumours for the machine. Next, we'll be breaking some news we think on CVG are predicting a lot of big exclusive games to be revealed, and we're going to speculate on what they could be. We'll also be making our final predictions for the machine, which hopefully aren't too insane. And we're going to talk about how we think Microsoft are going to crush PlayStation 4 with their grand plans for Xbox. If you didn't catch CVG's Xbox preview show just the other day starring Matt Pellett, where we ran through every single rumour about the new Xbox in really forensic detail, what we're going to do now is just recap the key rumour points before the show begins, literally in hours. The first thing is the name of the machine, which we're saying is either Xbox or Xbox Infinity. Any contention there?
We've given up on Xbox 720, have we?
I think it was an SEO term, it's my guess.
Yeah, I don't know if that was ever in the picture. This is where it's called Xbox 3 and we all look silly, but yeah, I was banking for Xbox. I think it's nice and clean, SEO nightmare though it may be. I just think it makes sense for Microsoft doing Apple, where Apple are just going the new iPad. I think the new Xbox makes sense, and everyone will know what it is immediately.
Has that necessarily been a success for Apple though? It seems to me it's one of those things where people now go, have you got a 4 or a 3, and you sort of look at the back of it and you're not quite sure. Obviously there's less Xboxes to get confused about, but
hopefully, I mean, look back at this gen at how many different SKUs there were. I'm hoping that Sony and Microsoft have learned a lesson there, and they are just going to have 1 or 2 propositions. It's not going to get too difficult for customers. I don't know, I wouldn't say it's too confusing. If you think about parents going into shops, they're just going to be asking, can I get a new Xbox or a new PlayStation for my son or my daughter, whatever it may be. People are used to just calling it Xbox anyway. I don't think 360 is necessarily the dominant.
I think it's just going to be Xbox, is my bet, based on not actually knowing too.
But is that based on the Hoover and kind of Walkman principle that Xbox has become the de facto games machine? Do you think they're so confident?
Yeah, I think that they want to do that, and it's all to do with their, as we'll talk about, this sort of holistic aims for uniting entertainment and games. And I think that having one big...
said holistic, Dan. You'd be sacking Roberto Mancini.
I'm saying it right now, and I think that big wrap up is in line with what they want to achieve. Even down to the fact that the hashtag for the event is Xbox Reveal. I know they can't say Xbox Infinity Reveal. Whoops, we've given the name away live on Twitter.
I wouldn't put it past the games industry to make that sort of mistake.
No. If you had to call it, Tim, what would you say the name is?
Well, I don't want to look a fool, so I'll go with the crowd and say, yeah, just Xbox.
Yeah, that's it, Tim.
I'd quite like it to be called Infinity. I like the name Dreamcast, but that didn't work out great.
Okay, the machine specs. This is what we know so far. It's basically, again, a powerful PC in a box, not unlike PlayStation 4. 8GB of RAM, and this is the slower form of RAM, we're told, the GDDR3, where PlayStation 4 uses the faster GDDR5, as we all know. When apparently the rumours are that 3GB of the memory will be reserved for live OS functions, so you'll be able to duck out at any time and just get involved with all your dashboard functions and that kind of thing. We're talking about an 8-core x86 AMD CPU, that's easy for me to say, and that's operating at 1.6 GHz. Bottom line on that is that it's possibly slightly slower than PlayStation 4, but not at a level where it's particularly upsetting. Almost there, we've got a custom GPU based on a Radeon HD 8770 or HD 7790. And finally, a 500GB HD drive and a Blu-ray drive. Does that mean a lot to you, and does that sound like what a machine should be?
Dan, you could have told me it was powered by dilithium crystals and I would not have been able to call you a liar. I think I'm more interested in seeing really what the user interface is, because if you look at the current gen of consoles, they're both quite clunky. I think they're both pains in the balls to navigate, and as a user, it's what it should be about is making it seamless to get to the stuff you want, and presenting the kind of, you'd imagine Xbox, like PlayStation, is going to have a wealth of kind of ancillary services tacked on, which I'm sure they'll spend a lot of time announcing and kind of cooing over while we're sitting there thumping a table saying show me the game. So I'm more interested to see that sort of stuff. What's interesting, and I use the word loosely, about the specs is how close those two consoles seemingly are. And I think that what you see with any sort of generation is that developers kind of have to work to the lowest spec, assuming they've both got a big install base. So there'd almost be no sense in going like miles out further than your competitor, because you're not going to have one developer, or you're not going to have developers generally going, well, we're going to make two radically different versions of these games to take advantage of a particular feature set or a power advantage on one machine. So you have to assume they're going to be fairly similar, even though there might be slight differences in terms of power. And at that point, it comes down to software exclusives, services, and almost quite small details that will determine, the winner.
Matt, have you got any thoughts on the machine specs and what the power will give us?
I think Microsoft were probably surprised by how strong the PS4 was. I think everyone kind of sat back during that PS4 reveal and was a little bit taken away by what they put out there. I think some people at the time were expecting 4 gig of RAM rather than 8 gig. I think Sony might have ruffled a few feathers at Microsoft HQ when that happened. It makes sense that it's very similar spec-wise to the PS4. We're talking about it maybe being ever so slightly less powerful, but I think it's going to be very hard.
The machines will be nip and tuck in terms of specs. When you're talking about cross-platform development, for example, something like Assassin's Creed Black Flag is going to look really similar on both consoles, isn't it? The pad we've talked about in a previous show. The big news with the pad is we're not expecting much change. Anyone here any different or expect any different?
Well, there is talk about maybe having some sort of touchpad functionality like the PS4 pad.
Really?
I sort of hope not. I mean, one thing that I touched upon in the last show was that Kinect 2.0 is supposed to be a big part of the console. You're supposed to get Kinect with every console. And Kinect for Microsoft is part of the control system.
I'm out then.
But that's part of Microsoft's grand plan. I mean, you're talking about UI, you're talking about how the Metro interface isn't that good on the 360 currently. Well, Microsoft want you to be using Kinect to navigate around their machine. Like Kinect 2.0 is part of the future of Xbox, whether or not you like it.
So, I mean, I guess if the tech is a huge step up, then perhaps they're right to plough quite so aggressively down that route. But do you ever get the feeling that, like in the same way that 3D, the impression I have has ultimately been a white elephant for Sony, whether this minority report fantasy that a lot of sort of tech companies seem to have is just that, a fantasy. Like I'm still not entirely convinced that people want that from their living room experience. I think I much more understand the idea of having tablets and controllers as second screens and using that, but you just feel like a fanny waving your arms around in the room to control stuff.
I agree, but I think the sad sort of convergence of rumours seems to be that Kinect is here, it's bundled in, it's here to stay. Kinect 2.0 will be incredibly responsive. It's going to measure finger movements, it's going to measure 4 players at once, it's going to measure apparently your eye movement. So like previous rumours had said that I could be watching TV now, move my eyes over there where I'm being blinded by a spotlight. And that would in fact turn off the TV stream. But would that be good? Annoying?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't. Yeah, but I mean, do you feel like there's a lot of like, finally the technology's arrived to solve those problems I didn't know I already had? Like, I don't feel like a great.
Imagine if you sneeze and your eyes go somewhere else and you just
fall out of your head.
Turn off.
Where are my eyes?
Click your fingers when you deleted your save. Oh god, that's so annoying.
The amount of times where I've been playing my 360 and the wife has walked across the front and Kinect has sort of gone a bit weird, even though it's not supposed to. It doesn't like it. It doesn't. I find it very hard to believe that Microsoft have found this system whereby they can consider every single circumstance that's going on in your home at one time and make Kinect 2.0 this system where it's always on, it does everything for the machine and it will work perfectly. Kinect has got so many problems that I think a lot of people, like yourself, Tim, are rightly worried that Kinect 2.0 is going to spoil your gaming experience. I guess that's that's a challenge Microsoft have in a few hours to convince us otherwise.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not going to insist on it, I assume.
Well, that's part of the rumour.
Yeah, the rumours are it's essentially Kinect is integral. I think it's part of the reason they're not as obsessed about changing the pad. It's because Kinect and voice interaction are a key part of the end structure of Xbox. I think we're going to see, well, we're not going to see a demo where someone's wife walks in front of the screen, it all goes wrong and a bloke starts crying, in a cramped flat, somewhere. You're not going to see that, but you're going to see something that makes it look like, wow, this is the future dream.
Press to the window, help me, Popper, let me out.
YouTube, contact grandfather. It's going to be all quite, space age and swishy, and I think they're going to do an impressive job with that, and all the rumours point that way. If we thought that was contentious, the biggest thing we've talked about today is always online.
Well, I wanted to ask you this, Dan. There's been like a notable period of silence post the PS4 release. How much of that time do you think has been spent unpicking always on, or do you expect it still to be always on? Or
I think you're exactly right, and I think always on in some form was always the intention. I think given the reaction to things like the Adamorph tweets and various different things that have gone on in the past, now Microsoft are unpicking the nature of how they describe always on and the phraseology of it, maybe even the functionality, as in they're making certain things work if you're not always on. The latest information seems to be that the machine will have an always on component, but it will not force you to be always online to play like offline single player games.
Would you read,
or if you watch DVDs, or if you're watching TV.
Would you read anything into, because I know that EA, there's a lot of talk that EA are going to form quite a significant part of this presentation. Would you read anything into the fact that this week they've scrubbed online passes? I wonder if that's not something a company the size of EA would do unless I think they had some other copy protection type.
I think it's absolutely fair to say that. I mentioned that in the other show. It's too convenient for EA to scrap this pass system that everyone hated in the same week that they'll be supposedly on the Xbox stage talking about the new Xbox. One rumour, of course, with the online functionality is that publishers are going to have a say as to whether or not they want their games to be always on, and it makes sense for someone like EA to handpick certain games that they do want always on functionality. There will be some publishers who probably won't choose that, but we're already seeing games such as Destiny. Destiny is a shooter for this gen and next gen, and it's always online. You cannot play it offline. I think we're going to be seeing more games maybe such as FIFA, whereby traditionally you've been able to play it offline, where you can only now play it in an online state. It's worrying for people who don't have the online functions. Like, there are still people playing their 360s, playing their PS3s who don't have internet access. They don't have it for their console.
Publishers want you always online if they can, because they can track your behaviour, they can sell you stuff. I think that's exactly what they want. They're fully aware of the dangers of, literally having a 3 meg connection that could drop out. It's definitely where they're pushing us. I think Microsoft are going to try and sell us that dream, but in very cosy, convenient language with lots of get-outs, essentially. Now, the big other swish part of the machine, I think it will be all about entertainment. And in fact, when Major Nelson was tweeting about the event, he described it as, on Tuesday, May 21st, will mark the beginning of a new generation of games, TV and entertainment. And it was bundling entertainment right almost in the forefront. And I think what we're going to see is a lot of talk about video streaming, about Skype, which Microsoft own. I think we're going to see sharing. I think we're going to see, unfortunately, Tim, you having to shovel your hands around the screen doing the Minority Report.
Actually, the Skype, really good HD Skype on your TV, I got no real problem with, but it's not something that would make me necessarily shell out 300 quid for a thing. TV, I wonder how you would revolutionise that, given that there's already existing streaming services that are perfectly, certainly in this country, perfectly serviceable. So I wonder what really can be done in that space. Just having it on their boxes, to me, doesn't mean that much. It's what can you do that improves it over and above what we've already got. So that'll be interesting.
I think the interesting differentiator here is that in the specs there's an HDMI in for the Xbox, for the next Xbox, which is a first for a games console. Traditionally you get your TV streamed via your Ethernet cable, your Wi-Fi, and then you put that out to the television. But they're talking about a system whereby you put TV into your Xbox.
What do you read into that?
Well, it's going to function like one multimedia device in Microsoft's eyes, this is your one central multimedia device for everything for your living room, not just games. Like, I don't think they're going to be marketing this as a games console first and foremost. This is the machine, which would make sense why they call it Xbox, which is for everyone to have in every single living room. Kinect bundled in, so you can do your video chat with your friends and your family, in different countries if need be. But you're also going to be recording TV. Now, I don't know why you choose to record TV to an Xbox when you can already in your Virgin box or your Sky.
I wonder if they're going to. This is something we talked about back in the day. In fact, you can see on screen like a render of the next Xbox that was produced during our time on Xbox World, based on what we thought was pretty good information from people we daren't name. But one of the features of that was that there's going to be a socket at the back which accepts a TV or like a Sky TV style input. Now, so your Xbox will effectively almost become your Skybox. Now, to take that to the next level, and if it's a fully interactive environment, could you record? I'm speculating. Could you record live TV and then add your own voice track and then share that with a friend? I don't know where that leaves you in copyright terms, but it's tapping into that YouTube creator mentality.
The Skybox itself is so. Apologies if you don't get Sky if you're watching overseas, but Sky's a PVR, effectively, like a TiVo. I can already record remotely with my iPad or my iPhone. It's got a big hard drive. I don't know, with the Ent stuff, to me, my point is essentially that they've got to do something that feels like it couldn't have been done before. Just having a load of these services, I don't think will be compelling personally. There was a reason Sony went down the it's all about the games route, because I think fundamentally you've got a core audience out there of people who are going to be willing to buy a machine for several £100s or dollars at launch, and they're the people who've been sat in this generation, like us down the League of Next Gentlemen, for 7 or 8 years waiting for a new machine to play games on. And I think if they don't go hard and heavy on the games, there's a danger of it becoming quite confused. But the good news is they're going to, right?
Games are going to be a big part. We're going to talk about games actually just in a moment with the full exclusive and stuff.
Keep my powder dry until then.
Yeah, that's keep your powder very dry. Price of the machine seems to be two competing rumours. One is that it's $299 with an Xbox Live subscription. Another is it's $499 as a standalone device, which is more like a mobile phone model. Does the prices sound correct to you?
I think they're fully believable. I would bear in mind you've got to do the old UK conversion, so we'll get stung. Don't expect us to be paying £275 for that. I think the days of £300 consoles for us here in the UK are long gone, looking at the specs.
Yeah.
Given that Kinect's going to be bundled in the box, supposedly bundled in the box as well, I think you're looking at £400 plus on its own. But the fact that they're talking about a system whereby you can buy the console cheaper and then you're tied into a 1 or a 2 year subscription, I mean, Microsoft shout about Xbox Live figures at every available opportunity. They want to grow that number. They want to grow exponentially. So I think it makes perfect sense for Microsoft's business model to be able to sell you the console at a loss for them, but make sure they're clawing back £10 every month or £15 every month, and they've got you for 2 years, so that all the games with always online functionality, you're perfectly placed to get that.
I think it makes total sense. Yeah, I mean, the culture now is people are used to owning smartphones and getting a discounted premium on the hardware in exchange for being locked into the system. And the reason I wouldn't even mind it is because if you buy a console, you're expecting to own it for at least 2 years, aren't you? Probably much longer. Yeah. And clearly, if you're part of the Xbox ecosystem already, you're almost certainly used to paying a subscription fee. So none of those things are new. Combining them from the start feels really logical. And I think it'd be one of those situations like with the Wii U premium model, where one model is so over-favoured. I guess it doesn't make much difference because all they've got to do is put a different card in rather than the size of the hard drive. But I think one SKU will be so much favoured, and I'm sure it'll be the subscription model because the idea of owning it and not subscribing seems clownish.
Yeah, I think they'll offer one almost like this is the one that forces you to choose the other one, because the other one's so much clearly better value. Okay, we'll talk now about what we expect from the event itself. Previous Microsoft events have been a little bit glitzy and perhaps a little bit cheesy, having sat through a few in the past. I don't know if we're expecting Usher to dance off the stage this time. What do you expect the actual event to feel like and the feel of the event?
Well, it's at Microsoft's HQ in Redmond, so I expect sort of a homely style event. I think you're right. I don't
Tea
think
and biscuits.
I was thinking like Christmas songs with Bing Crosby.
Don Matrick in a knitted sweater.
Don Matrick's the
With a
worst
pipe.
presenter in the world.
With a pipe.
But they shouldn't let Matrick anywhere near it. Robo Matrick.
Surely Phil Harrison's going to come out and
You'd think
do
so,
his
wouldn't
thing. It would be crazy to still keep him under wraps.
He's more of a showman.
So yeah, I don't know. I think they're going to save the glitz and the glam for E3. I think they're going to save a lot of the games for E3 as well. Greenberg's come out and said already that this is very much a two-part reveal event. One of them, this is the first part in a couple of hours, just to get the console across, get the point of the console across, how it works. And yes, there will be some games used to demonstrate, what the new Xbox can do. But then I think E3 is where they're really going to go big on a lot of their exclusives. Tons of exclusives, I think, is the actual quote that Greenberg used for that, which is interesting because Microsoft has had a big problem trying to get a lot of exclusives when you compare with Sony's offering up until now. So I think they're going to focus mostly on the hardware. I'm sure we're going to see a box. I certainly hope so. Off the back of the PS4 reveal.
It's the one thing they can do that
they-
Sony didn't do, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
for sure, isn't it? To go look, the other guys didn't show you a machine, but of course we're going to.
Well, the director of programming for Xbox, Larry Herb, Major Nelson on Twitter, he came out straight after the PS4 reveal and said, announcing a console without showing a console, that's one approach, which surely they won't go back and not reveal the console now because they look like...
Do you think they'll go as sort of like lo-fi and playing to gamers and developers in the same way PlayStation did? PlayStation's felt quite almost like to the point. It was like games developers, chat. Do you think they're going to throw out like a big Hollywood celeb or look at some big sporting star?
I mean, that stuff I think just washes over most people. I don't think it matters. I think in a funny way they've been outmanoeuvred because by going first and not showing, although you can be critical of Sony for saying that, some people found that underwhelming, and I kind of get that. It's cool seeing the box, even though ultimately all you need to know is what outputs it's got, because anything else is pretty much irrelevant and what the power is. But so even if Microsoft show their box now, that leaves E3 then for Sony to go, we still got a big kind of thing that people care about being revealed in the pipe. So I'd be disappointed if they don't go quite heavy on the software. I think that was where Sony was arguably weak, is that none of that kind of first party software was stuff that you thought, the stuff, it looked nice, but none of it was stuff that really made you kind of drop your trousers and go, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, even as sort of attractive Killzone was, maybe it didn't totally wow you. It didn't wow me, and I think that there's definitely scope for Microsoft to, I think, in a way, to out games PlayStation. And if you think about it, PlayStation was really all about saying we love games, we're about embracing indies, we're about AAAs, all those type of things. So I guess now we'll push on to what CPG are saying. There's going to be some big exclusive game reveals, possibly third party, obviously first party. What are we expecting? Tim, what would you back to be the big exclusives?
The one I think will be there that I'm most excited to see is the Respawn game, which everyone knows is on the verge of reveal. Those ex-Infinity Ward guys have always, to my mind, had a close relationship with Xbox and with their online kind of community, in the fact that COD really exploded there. It sounds like COD's going to be there as well, doesn't it? That's gearing up also for a reveal. I don't think it will be Xbox exclusive, but I certainly wouldn't back against it having a map pack or some other timed DLC nonsense, which a lot will be made out of. It's tricky, isn't it? Because you'd be surprised. We were talking earlier, Dan, about whether any of the truly big hitters, like a GTA or assuming GTA at some point comes to next gen, but a GTA or a COD would go fully exclusive. That seems really hard to see. So you had some ideas, Matt, about some other tier kind of games.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on your point, I think it's exclusive. I think it's interesting we're at this point with the rumours where potentially you've got Call of Duty sharing the stage with the next game by Western Zampella.
Yeah, I find that weird.
That's
to
kind
push
of
both
scary.
to push both as tiers of exclusive at the same time, both creators must feel a bit like, oh right, we're sharing the exclusive limelight, are we?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a tension in that.
I mean, we know that Call of Duty is there. They've already said as much. We're going to
Yeah.
be seeing the new Call of Duty at the Xbox event. But yeah, to have the game by the two people who left Infinity Ward under that cloud that they did a couple of years ago, that seems kind of risky to me to have that both at the same event. I don't know.
You think it
I
might-
just see
it might-
EA
one
and
might pull a
Activision
gap.
squaring off.
Yeah.
It's
Unless,
it's
you
a
know,
bit of
for
a strange
Zampello
one.
and West, I think they love it. If they were confident in their game, which, you know, apparently is called Titan and features mechs. Mechs, I ask you. Sounds a bit like, well, my fear with that game is it's going to be like 3 years ago doing a game that was like Avatar seemed cool. Maybe now not so cool. But I think, yeah, maybe they'll have the confidence to say we're going to go on the same stage and we're going to blow them away. You know, our game's going to be sensational.
I think we can bank on something from EA. EA were a big absence from the PS4 reveal, and you've got to ask yourself why. I mean, I thought initially it would be for Battlefield 4, but we've already seen Battlefield 4, so I'm not sure if they'll.
Even
they'll
for
wanna go
Microsoft,
big
there's
on
a
that.
chance. Like, I mean, how shooter heavy can you make it?
Yeah. Who knows? I mean,
The first next gen sports games, that would be interesting.
maybe FIFA. I mean,
Seeing
Need for
FIFA
Speed, we haven't
debut on
seen-
next gen would be. Ooh.
We haven't seen Need for Speed either from EA yet this year. Normally we would have seen it by now.
When it was the debut of the last gen, where did they demo that fight night footage? Was that at the PS3 conference or the Xbox one? I can't remember, but I remember them being there, and it was all that punch physics stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, that looks amazing. I think if you take out the obvious stuff, let's say like there's going to be another Halo, there's going to be an amazing looking forward to. There's going to be that game, what is it, Rise, the sort of 300 AP
Rise
Kinect game.
from Crytek that's been in development for
Yeah,
years now.
to be honest with you, I'm not holding out much hope for that. Maybe it's really cool, and I'll be here eating humble pie in just a few
Rise
hours.
has got one of those names where you just 4 years after it being released, you go, "What's that game called? Rice, Ruse?"
That was rubbish, and it might be amazing.
I mean, they do need something, if they're going to go big on Kinect 2.0, they do need a game
Yes.
to show that off. And do they plan for something like Kinect Sports 3? I'm not so sure. Maybe they will. But I think Rise is, I know people are expecting it to be a real gamer's game. I don't know if you can get such a thing as a gamer's game for Kinect.
Well,
but
we'll find out.
perhaps that can be the
I
one.
wonder, like Tim touched upon, what would be the one game or franchise that they could pull out of the hat and go, it's exclusive to Xbox,
That's
and would
gettable.
absolutely and blow people away as well. You know, something that you go, wow, untouchable.
I mean,
Well, it's
there's
tricky,
plenty
isn't
of
it?
potential. They've
Or do you
been-
just think they just
there-
can't get the games that would make a difference?
No, I think they can, and I think that Greenberg wouldn't have come out and claimed that they've got tons of exclusives if they hadn't already got them. Now, Black Tusk, I don't know if we're going to see anything from the Black Tusk studio that Microsoft has been shouting about recently.
Right.
In terms of brands that we already know about, Alan Wake devs. Last May, I think it was, were hiring for a next-gen project. Now, there's a lot of love for Alan Wake in the Xbox community. Maybe, just maybe, Microsoft are going to wheel another Alan Wake out. A year and a half ago, there were rumours of Dead Rising as well. We haven't seen a lot
That's
from
an-
Capcom, so
That's an interesting case. I think there's a, like Tim said, there's a case for games that are the ones that are like gettable because the publisher probably needs the support in the same way that like Platinum probably wouldn't have made Bayonetta 2 unless Nintendo had said,
The money hat
work
done.
with us.
Put the money hat on.
Chapeau is the hat full of coins. And like a game that's like good and respected and on the fringe suddenly comes to the forefront, which would, I hate to say it, suit some games on Capcom's profile.
Well, I mean, you look at a company as big as Ubisoft for a while. Like Splinter Cell was Xbox only, wasn't it? Didn't come
Yeah.
to PlayStation until later in its life. So there's definitely scope for some surprises. I mean, it could be that when he was talking about tons of exclusives, he's including in that first party titles as well. That tends to be how they talk about that sort of stuff, isn't it?
Do you think they could? There's any chance they could come out and go Grand Theft Auto exclusive on next gen to Xbox?
No, zero chance.
I'd like to see it, but I don't know. I mean, GTA is a funny one because Microsoft paid $50 million for the DLC last time round,
Yeah.
and that was just timed exclusive. I don't think they'll ever get a complete exclusive. They'll just be timed DLC. Or timed exclusivity. You mentioned Call of Duty earlier on. Well, Call of Duty for the last few years, there have been timed DLC packs on the 360. I think we've got DLC a month in advance on 360 compared with on PS3, and we're going to see similar sorts of things.
You can get. I mean, I think with DLC and stuff like that, you can get any exclusive if you're prepared to throw enough cash at it that you're offsetting what the publisher's losing by not being on the other platform at the same time. The question mark really is more that Microsoft doesn't have the same internal riches in terms of studios that either Sony or Nintendo have, so they have to go out there and find guys like Epic to make games like Gears for them. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if Epic had a new franchise which was perhaps spun off that text demo they've been showing.
Off the Samaritan demo a few years back.
I completely agree. I think while Sony have obviously got very core strengths they own, as in first-party games, like they can bring out Uncharted 4 at E3, and you know that's going to be amazing. Microsoft, beyond the sort of obvious, haven't got maybe quite the depth in terms of the first-party studio, so the alternative is let's buy good third-party timed exclusives, because it's buying in what the obvious gap is in your perception.
Do you think there'll be anything Halo-ish, Matt, or do you think they'll save that for E3? Because I really loved the last Halo, and I thought 343 did a really good job, and it'd be interesting to see how that might look on next
Possibly.
year.
I mean, they've got a heck of a lot of people at 343 that have been working there a long time, and I struggle to believe they've just been working on Spartan Ops for Halo 4. Whether or not we can get another Halo this year, I don't know. I'm sure they can churn out at least a teaser for it. It would make sense. Halo is their big brand, and
I
can
agree.
you have an Xbox reveal without a Halo?
Even if it's just a little
teaser now, shiny helmet, come E3.
Easy.
Sorry, oh my life. Shiny helmet now, come E3. You know, when Sony come out with Uncharted 4, whatever they're going to show, they can go, hey, you can see the first Halo on the next Xbox. Time is running against us. What I want to know is, what do you think Microsoft have to do to beat the mind war with PlayStation? How could they do that?
I think they need to speak to gamers again. They've forgotten how to do that. The last couple of E3s have left me very, very cold. Like when Usher's been wheeled out, or they spend 10 minutes on Nike Training Plus or whatever it is, Nike Kinect Training Plus, and that Gears of War Judgment gets 30 seconds of CG video. I mean, they've really forgotten about their gaming core, and they need to rediscover that, especially with the talk of it being an entertainment central system about your TV and your entertainment, and your games as well. I think even now the messages they're putting out are very mixed, and they're trying to appeal to everyone. I think Kinect's given them that taste of a
Do you
new
think then they
audience.
can they, I mean Tim, do you think they can out games PlayStation and out ends PlayStation? They're going to try and like completely blow them out of the water?
I think they could. But I think they need 3 games which aren't on PlayStation and never will be on PlayStation that are so compelling that people feel excited enough to run off and start their own blogs about, or they just can't believe how good they look. My suspicion, these things tend to be the same as E3 press conferences. They tend to be overlong, and because of the length of them, you tend to get real ups and downs in it. So my impression, or my guess, is that it will be a mixed bag, because they almost always are mixed bags. I think it'll be 7 out of 10, and I think there'll be some things that are genuine surprises and are exciting, and there'll be some bits that are kind of confusing and feel like they're not really for us as core gamers.
Yeah, I think exactly that. I think what they'll do is they'll make a tighter show than PlayStation, because they'd have studied their mistakes. I do think they're going to have something happen in the world of ENTS that's got a bigger media resonance. My mad dream would be something like, hey, it's Daft Punk. They're playing a track from their new album live right now, streamed over the new Xbox Entertainment Network, and you can share it and add comments to it, and you Kinect to fuzz it all up. And I think they'll do some sort of live performance element that will capture the essence of what the machine's all about.
Well, just before we jump off, actually, that's interesting you say that, because if they are talking about the future of TV and that sort of social stuff, the one thing that the TV industry hasn't been able to fully nail yet is how they, we had Eurovision at the weekend, how they nail that. Not always having it on a second screen, but having that social stuff appear almost as part of the broadcast, and that shareability. And if they did do something in that space, much as I don't like Daft Punk, if they did do something in that space, that could be quite interesting.
Well,
but by compelling enough to buy the machine.
I'm going to say now, that's it. They'll do PIP, picture in picture. They'll have like people on the Xbox reveal hashtag appearing live, I think, in the demo. That's my insane prediction.
I mean, they've already got that platform there with Smart Glass. Last year at E3, they were showing us Smart Glass with your iPad, with your phone. But they do need to expand on that system, because we are using second screen
It's
systems
clunky to
more
use
and
it,
more.
that Smart Glass out
Very
there at the
much
moment,
so.
isn't it?
But they'll want to push Smart Glass. They want to push their Surface tablet. They'll want to do things that make those more attractive propositions.
That Surface tablet's finished. It's gone.
We'll find out in only a short few hours who is correct. We'll be back here at this destination on CBG. Follow the link on the screen with our post-reaction analysis show. If you're still waiting for other exciting Xbox things to whet your appetite, CBG are live streaming a classic Xbox game right now. There's also a series of really great Xbox history articles up on CBG right now. We're off for a cold bath and to get extremely excited, not together, to get extremely excited about the unveiling, and we'll see you in a few short hours. Bye.